Hi there, Spencer Bronte here, and once again we are back with Fact Time. This is number 6. Today I want to talk about a subject we haven't touched on, but I plan to do more on in future. That's history. So we're going to talk about the combination of two of my favorite topics, history and culinary arts. So this will be of interest to anybody who's into either history or if you like food and cooking. We're going to talk about hardtack. Hardtack has fascinated me since I figured out what it was, and that's largely because of the classic book Hardtack and Coffee by John D. Billings. It's a book about the life of a Civil War soldier in the Army of the Potomac, and one of the chapters that I still remember, possibly because the title Hardtack and Coffee was the chapter on army rations and the portion on hardtack. So you can see an image of that. That's obviously black and white, but that just shows you what it looks like. That doesn't tell you what it is. So what it is really just kind of a cracker. And this cracker is made of flour, sometimes salt and water, and that is it. And this was a staple ration for U.S. forces in the Civil War, and this is also something that has been used throughout the world and throughout history. This was a form of this was actually used in navies, particularly the British Royal Navy, for quite some time. This is probably believed to be what actually inspired J.R.R. Tolkien when he wrote The Lord of the Rings and talked about things like cram and then limbas bread, the elvish way bread. It's believed that he was talking about cram as in hardtack in a sense, and then a really wonderful version, which is obviously fantasy, in the elvish way bread. But I long ago had to make some, and I did. And it doesn't taste bad until you let it dry, and it still tastes okay beyond being stale, but it's really difficult. So what I'm going to do here is actually eat some on camera, and that should be interesting. So I've got a few different options here. I made some last night. This is a standard recipe here. So this is just salt, flat white flour, and water. So these kind of hard, but these are good. Still, it's hard because I've been letting it sit out on purpose. Now, I also tried the version I'd prefer, and that's 100% whole wheat flour, nothing removed. So okay, after sitting out all night, it's not as hard as the white, which is interesting. And I think it tastes better. But that's me. I love whole wheat flour. I'm not a big fan of white flour. Now, this is not really how they ate it, though, because by the time they got it, it was hard. Legendarily hard. Jaw-breaking hard. If I remember correctly, and I could be wrong here, but if I remember correctly, they were given 10 crackers a day. And actually, the size of the cracker here was about half an inch thick, and let me see, about half an inch thick, I believe. I'll read a portion from the book here. It was a plain flour and water biscuit, see, not always salt, I've heard, two which I have in my possession as mementos, measure 3 1/8 by 2 7/8 inches, and are nearly half an inch thick. Okay, so obviously my sizes are a little bit different, but I made some years ago, and I'm going to try it now. Here's the one I made years ago, before I had a rolling pin, so you can see it's a little bit, wonky, but that's hardtack. Okay, so I have coffee here, because you're supposed to, and I understand that they drank it out of tin mugs like I have here, but that is dang hot, so I don't know how they pulled that off. Maybe they just got used to it. Maybe soldiers back then and sailors back then, if sailors drank out of tin too, I don't know. Maybe they got what you call chef fingers, where everything's burnt and you don't feel much anymore. All right, so I'm going to try this. Let's hope I don't break my teeth. I should have my dentist on speed dial probably right now. Stale. Not as hard as I thought. Very hard still, though. In the book, I remember the author describes how you'd get weevils and maggots in this and all sorts of things, and you could heat this or just put it in coffee, hardtack and coffee, and then skim the weevils off later. Things like that. Cook it in fat if you had any. All sorts of ways to eat it, so let's try it soaked in coffee. I didn't let it soak long enough, so that's going in there. I'll try it again in a second here. Coffee's good. Just black, nothing in it. They might have had sugar if they were lucky, but very rarely. And while I'm waiting for that hard version to soften, modern hardtack. Not really the same thing, but this is an MRE cracker. Got this just at the grocery store, and it's, you know, kind of like a giant saltine, but not quite as salty. And it's interesting because this is usually used with like Cheese Whiz almost, or peanut butter. You can sometimes see these in stores, and they have little packets next to them of either cheese spread or peanut butter. And this is much more like a cracker. For being not so healthy white flour and stuff, that's not bad. That's pretty good. This, though, the regular flour hardtack, is, in my opinion, quite good right out of the oven. I had some, actually, spoiler, I had some in full transparency right out of the oven last night, and it was great. Nice and warm and still soft then. But let's get that soggy stuff. Dang, that's still hard. Okay, so we're not going to wait for this, but I guess you have to let it soak for a really long time in your coffee. There you go. That's hardtack and some coffee. That's some Civil War, military, also naval history, and all sorts of armies across the world through world history. And that's some culinary history as well. Hopefully that was interesting to you guys. Let me know what you think. And you can, if you're interested in making it, I know there are recipes out there. I use some with a little salt. It makes it a little bit better. But all that was in there was salt, flour, a little bit of salt, flour, and water. And then I baked it for about 35 minutes at 375 degrees Fahrenheit. I used 2.5 cups of flour to 1 teaspoon of salt and 1 cup of water. That's how I made this. I found that recipe online. Don't know how accurate it is or not, but since there are variations of this stuff, I figure that's okay. Thanks for watching me eat. Hopefully you learned something. We'll see you next time. Bye.